the first reading is something which we take for granted, because why should it be such a big deal that Simon Peter should be eating with non-Jews? Now remember, we're at the first origin here, when still Simon Peter was operating initially within what was there, that is, believers in what they were formed in Jerusalem and Galilee, Jews. And it was a big deal for them to eat with the uncircumcised. And he's criticized there by the brethren, these are the Jewish brethren, for doing this. And he comes back explaining how the Lord had shown him that this was his will. There had been this experience when he was on the roof of all places, praying at the hour of prayer, and he saw in vision this strange sheet coming down, lowered at the four edges, with all kinds of things on it which were unclean for the Jews. And this voice came, "Rise, Simon, eat." And that was the one thing he would never do, eat unclean food. And it happened 3 times. And eventually, oh yes, there was this clear indication. He was not to consider unclean what God had rendered clean. And immediately afterwards, when this disappeared back into where it came from, there were these people arriving, and this is where we come on the scene with this gospel, or this first reading, and they want to see him. And they're coming for help, but they're not Jews. It leads, of course, to a great miracle, but he hears in his heart this prompting. The Spirit tells him to go with them without hesitation. Now that's a direct intervention, but he picked it up. Now, I want to make a jump. You might find, if you're into prayer, that on a mini scale can happen to you too. More than you think. Just the other day, I was in the Hermitage, and this nudge came to take up, it was actually quite tiring, but the little demand of a little child way up in Sligo to go and see them again. I thought, well, I can just about do it this day because there are no appointments, and something put it on my heart, yes, do it. So off I went, and I realised after getting there, oh, the Lord had more in mind than I thought. Next minute I found myself in a hospital next to a person who was dying, a young person about your age, and of great faith. But before I got there, I was given a little bit of information that somebody had picked up in prayer. She was big into prayer, like yourselves, and she'd been given in prayer that there was something to be sorted, and she knew what it was in the case of this person. And I asked her a question, and then I asked it again more specifically, and she was quite taken aback. And I explained what someone else had given to me. So we were able to sort that one out, and she's now in complete peace. And I thought, wow, that's all because the Lord was prompting discreetly. And we can block it up with wonderful programs. My timetable is full, I'm in charge. Thank you. Well, if that's the case, even the Holy Spirit can't get through to us. We're programming. So I'd say it's something to be cultivated, picking up the nudges. I was reading one time how a person was driving up the brow of a hill and heard something in her heart. Slow down, if you insist, and did so. And when that person got to the top of the hill, had she not slowed down, it would have been immediate slaughter. So these things have to be picked up. It can be either the Holy Spirit or an angel or a guardian angel, who, by the way, is far more around than we think to people. Remember that. The more we invoke him, the more interested he is, and the more he kind of works with us. Sharpen your antennae to pick up your guardian angel. He's there all the time, prodding and hinting. And I found my guardian angel great help for finding lost objects. I'm forever losing lost objects. He knows where they are, and you can see what he nudges you. It works. So cultivate that. And also be aware that every time that a human being comes to you, it's not just a number, it's an eternity. That person has a long history, and a history which is going to be a future which is never going to end. And while that person is before me, I've got a chance of giving that person a good experience which can help him or upset him. And if it's a word, if it's a hug, if it's a look, even if it's a joke, if it's something which gives healing, it's one step in the right direction. If that person goes away wounded even more, or even indirectly wounded by being brushed away as a number, believe you me, they'll pick up the difference. A human being is not a number. It's a universe apart with his own story, irrepeatable and complete. It takes a long time to get into that history. The fact that that person picks up, oh, this person cares, is in itself a shock in our impersonal society. Care. One day, Scott Hahn, when he was a young man, had this strange experience. His program had been suddenly changed. It wasn't what he'd planned for that night, but it brought him back to where he wouldn't have been normally at that point in time. And he shouldn't have been there, but he was because of this thing which he was open to. And the door rang, and he opened it, and it was a friend of his. Well, actually, I think it was the other way around. He was prompted to go and see him out of the blue. That's what it was. And when they confronted each other, his friend said to him, "Scott, I was about to commit suicide." So, that was picked up. Promptings which can have a long, long result. I just finish. The more we sharpen the antennae and make gentle the pores of our soul, the more it's likely to happen. They call it, when it gets to a certain degree, the gift of knowledge, don la science, when actually we know a little bit more than we should know. Children, by the way, can have it. If they're into prayer, if they're into a good family, when they're very small, they sometimes do actually sort of know things which they shouldn't know. So you little people, while you're still young, don't throw it away. Because when you're young, you're still very much in touch with where you've come from. Don't be in a hurry to be cool and to grow up. It's far more interesting to be what you are. I just finish. In a Christian family, there's much grace in the air. Why? Because you're a little church, a domestic church. And the atmosphere in this house, in your houses, must be what it is when you're before the tabernacle or in adoration. Peace. Cultivate peace. Life is very short, said the Beatles, and there's no time for fussing and fighting, my friend.